Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 93, Bye Bye Psyduck. The episode begins with Ash and the gang having arrived on Kano Island, just like at the end of last episode. But now, they were on a beach, not the main port area. They were taking a rest, with Ash taking the time to polish off the GS ball, while letting his Pokemon out for a stretch, along with Misty and Tracy's. A lot of them decided to stretch out on Lapras and go for a cruise, most specifically, Psyduck, Pikachu, and Togepi. Psyduck then falls asleep while riding Lapras, and manages to fall off into the ocean in its sleep, but thankfully, Pikachu and Togepi notice this, so they quickly ride Lapras back to shore and inform Ash and the gang. Misty, despite hating Psyduck, is absolutely scared by this, and demands that everyone send out their water Pokemon to go look for it. Ash and the gang didn't need to locate Psyduck though, as someone else had, being a girl named Maria, who was fishing with her Tentacruel in a boat. When she spotted Psyduck, who was now awake, obviously frightened as fuck, since it couldn't swim. Due to Maria already picking up Psyduck and saving it, this meant that Goldeen, Meryl, Squirtle, and Staryu, who had been sent out with Lapras to go look for Psyduck, were unsuccessful. Ash noted how unusual this was, which pissed Misty off for just Ash shrugging this off as unusual, like he wasn't more concerned with the fact that her Pokemon was missing. Tracy, though, questioned why Misty was so concerned, as Ash had told him all of the stories about how Misty had hated Psyduck, so this led him to come up with a theory that she actually did love Psyduck after all, and was just scared to admit it, due to Psyduck being unpopular. Just then, Maria, who was looking for the Psyduck's owner, decides to go to the beach, and of course, stumbles upon Ash and the gang with her Tentacruel, and she immediately questions them if the Psyduck was any of theirs. However, Ash and the gang almost think that the Psyduck isn't theirs, as Psyduck's tail was now glowing a bright pink. Misty then figures out that it is hers, though, as it goes to snuggle up to her. Ash and the gang question what the pink tail was supposed to be about, and how Psyduck had acquired it, and Maria reveals that a pink tail was supposed to be a sign that Psyduck was going to evolve into its evolved form, Golduck, soon. Upon hearing about the Golduck, Ash immediately uses his Pokedex on it, and it tells him that it's the fastest water Pokemon of all time. Now, I don't know when the fuck this Pokedex was updated. Like, did Ash get a new update recently? He must not have, because I doubt Golduck's the fastest water Pokemon. Misty then thanks Marina for saving the Psyduck, and talks about how Golduck was her favorite Pokemon. Marina excitedly replies that Golduck was her favorite Pokemon too, which just gets them to go on a long-ass conversation all about water Pokemon, and how fucking awesome they were. Ash and Tracy just stand there during all this like, holy fuck, how long can you guys talk about a seal or a fucking Poliwhirl, goddamn. The conversation then shifts to something probably even more boring for Ash and Tracy, which is the concept of fishing lures, as Marina and Misty both loved fishing. They showed each other all their lures, with Misty especially pointing out her custom-made one that resembled her. They then talk about how they both wanted to catch the legendary Pokemon Dratini, Dragonair, and Dragonite, even though Kaiser warned Misty not to, because they were endangered back in episode 35, remember that? They then talk about all the water Pokemon that they already did catch, with Marina specifically being interested in Misty's Psyduck, asking why it couldn't swim. Misty obviously doesn't want to admit in front of her new friend that her Psyduck was just a wimp, so she makes up a lie that Psyduck was a rare breed that was adverse to water. Wow, that's a great thing to do, lie to a friend as soon as you meet them. After hearing about each other's Pokemon, Marina obviously wants to battle against Misty's to see what they were really about, so Misty accepts the challenge, and they decide to have a battle, to determine which of them was truly the best water trainer, as they seemed even in all other fronts. Meanwhile, Team Rocket was in their Magikarp sub, attempting to spy on Ash and the gang as usual. However, some Tentacool were blocking their view. Meowth screams at Jessie to move the Tentacool out of the way, and although she does do this, she makes sure to smack Meowth with her hair in the process, in anger at him for the yelling. James then complains that he's a hungry bastard, as he was probably the one having to do most of the peddling like last time, and Jessie just screams at him as well, telling him to shut the fuck up. And going back to focusing on Ash and the gang, who they could now see again due to the Tentacool being out of the way, and they saw Marina and Misty begin their battle. The battle was going to be 3-on-3, and the first match was between Misty's Goldeen and Marina's Tentacruel. Tentacruel began to use Wrap, but Goldeen was able to dodge with an agility, avoiding it, and go in for a Horn Attack. This Horn Attack, though, wasn't enough, and Tentacruel then used Poison Sting, which was enough to knock out the Goldeen, because Goldeen was so fucking weak. This was its first, genuine battle in the entire series, and Misty's had it since episode 1. Marina justifies her win by saying that since Tentacruel was also a poison type, it having a secondary typing gave it an advantage. Misty then sends out her Staryu, and Misty and Marina begin to talk about how fucking beautiful Staryu looked, with Ash butting in and stating that although it was beautiful, Staryu was actually weak as fuck, and this pissed Misty off, telling Staryu to prove itself, and it certainly did, as Staryu managed to take out Marina's Tentacruel with one swift attack. Damn, take that, Ash, get wrecked. Marina then reveals that she has a Psyduck as well, although this Psyduck appeared to be a lot stronger physically than Misty's, as it proceeded to flex its muscles, and Tracy looked very amazed at this. Is Tracy a little bit gay? Not that there's anything wrong with that, of course. Anyways, Staryu goes in for a water gun on the Psyduck, but Psyduck manages to deflect it with a confusion. Yes, that's right, this Psyduck was apparently able to use psychic attacks without having that much of a headache, as it certainly didn't look to be in too much pain. But the confusion deflects the water gun back at Staryu, knocking it out. This leaves Misty down to her final Pokemon, and Marina requests that it be Psyduck so that they can have a Psyduck versus Psyduck battle, and see which Psyduck truly was stronger. Tracy then agrees with Marina's suggestion, telling Misty that one battle would probably be enough to make Psyduck evolve, as if its tail was already glowing pink, it should just be on the very edge. Misty agrees, and attempts to throw out Psyduck's Pokeball to let it out, But when she throws the Pokeball, it's empty, revealing that she had thrown the wrong one. And she had instead thrown an unused Pokeball, revealing that she didn't know which Pokeball Psyduck's was anymore, as she wasn't used to sending it out, since Psyduck always sent itself out. Embarrassed to make such a mistake in front of Maria, she tries her best to shrug it off, just yelling at Ash to go get Psyduck's Pokeball. But when Ash tries to grab it from her bag, he obviously doesn't know which Pokeball Psyduck was in either. It's not like he's ever sent it out, so he just tries to throw Misty's bag to her so that she can grab it herself. Ash gave it a bad throw though, likely because he didn't care that much, and as a result, it falls into the water. When Misty goes to pick it up, it's suddenly a lot heavier, so she has a lot of trouble pulling it up. But when she does, it's revealed that the extra weight was being caused by none other than a Golduck whose head was stuck inside the bag. The Golduck immediately yanks itself out of the bag and stands up, doing a cool-ass pose, much to Ash and the gang's shock. Misty's first thought when she sees the Golduck is that she must have actually sent out the right Pokeball after all, but Psyduck had just already left the ball as usual, and since then had evolved into this Golduck. Despite apparently not being fond of Psyduck, Misty obviously loved the Golduck, with her being her favorite Pokemon, and she went up to hug it, exclaiming with immense excitement that now nobody would yell at it or her due to hating a Psyduck. Marina also reacts in awe at seeing her favorite Pokemon, but Ash, on the other hand, rebuts Misty's statement that anyone would have yelled at Psyduck in the first place, stating that Misty was always the one who yelled at Psyduck. Him and Brock always liked it. This leads Tracy to further believe that his theory about Misty and Psyduck loving each other was true after all, since Psyduck must have evolved because it wanted Misty to finally appreciate it instead of hating it, and it knew that Misty would love it if it evolved. Adding that the reason why Misty probably acted like she hated Psyduck in the first place was so that she could motivate it to evolve. Now having a Golduck as opposed to Psyduck, Misty decided to use it as her third Pokemon, and the battle continued, with Team Rocket still watching. Marina's Psyduck starts off by using Confusion on the water to lift up the water and cause a huge-ass wave to form. Golduck is able to use this wave to its advantage though, as it uses Surf on it, and tries to surf the wave back towards Psyduck's direction, with the help of his psychic powers. Just then though, a disturbance underwater causes the wave to turn into a whirlpool. Golduck jumps off of the whirlpool to be cautious, and it was rightfully cautious, as the source of this whirlpool was none other than Team Rocket's Magikarp sub, which had come up now to the surface. The Magikarp sub's sudden speedy appearance causes multiple huge waves in the water, so it means that Ash has to give up on using Thunderbolt and run away with everyone else to get away from the waves.
The Thunderbolts were useless against the Magikarp sub's materials anyway, but unfortunately, so were Ash and the gang's attempts to run away from the waves, as the waves washed over them, knocking them into a tree.
The wave also causes a button to be pressed on the Magikarp sub, which deploys a net, which hits Tentacruel and Marina's Psyduck, capturing them. After hearing a net fire, Team Rocket run out of the sub in excitement, thinking that they've caught Pikachu or even Golduck, but they're disappointed to learn who they actually caught, as Tentacruel and Psyduck were a lot less rare. But hey, guys, it's something. You guys haven't even captured a single Pokemon for Giovanni yet. This is better than nothing. As for Ash and the gang, they were currently stuck in that tree, and were trying their best to get out. And to make matters worse, Marina had realized that Tentacruel and Psyduck were captured inside of Team Rocket's net. Fortunately, Ash and the gang are able to get out of the tree, and Marina sends out her Starmie to go after the sub so that they can get back Psyduck and Tentacruel. Even without Misty's orders, Golduck jumps in and joins the Starmie in its pursuit, as it doesn't want to be shown up by it. It wants to prove that it could do it on its own, and save Tentacruel and Psyduck. Golduck is able to outshine Starmie, as it arrives by Team Rocket's Magikarp sub first, cutting off Team Rocket, who were arguing with each other about whose idea it was to fire the net, not realizing that the net had been fired by mistake. Instead of being intimidated by the Golduck though, Team Rocket were extremely excited by it, as it meant that they had the opportunity to catch it, knowing it was rare. They should have been scared of Golduck though, as it proceeded to use its psychic powers to absolutely decimate the Magikarp sub, throwing it onto the beach, throwing Team Rocket in the process, leaving them severely injured. Nah, just kidding. They somehow weren't injured, despite the immense beating that the fucking metal sub took, and they proceed to just go out and do their motto, explaining how they were going to capture the Golduck. They then proceed to shake things up a little bit by doing what we call in the business a little trolling, as when Ash demands that they give Marina's Pokemon back to her, they seem like they're going to. They're like, oh yeah, we'll give them back, never mind. But then 1 second later, Meowth is just like, psych, we'll only give them back if you give us Pikachu, bitch. Marina commands her Pokemon to break out of the net, but it obviously wasn't that simple, otherwise they would have done that already, and she realizes that this, as they're too fucking tired after already battling Misty's Pokemon, so she decides to take matters into her own hands and run up to Team Rocket to try and free her Pokemon from the net. However, she is stopped in her tracks as Jessie sends out her Arbok, who proceeds to try and attack her. Although, she's not stopped for long, as right before Arbok can attack, Golduck comes in a Deus Ex Machina moment and fires a water gun, which sends Arbok flying into a tree. It had returned from the water after blasting Team Rocket to the beach, and it was ready to finish them off. It proceeds to stop Arbok from using Poison Sting by disabling the move with its Disable, and then throws Arbok into the air with its Psy-Wave attack. It lands on top of the Magikarp sub, which Team Rocket retreat into in an attempt to escape. However, Golduck then directs its attention to the Magikarp sub and fires off a Hyper Beam, attacking both the Arbok and the sub, destroying the sub and sending Team Rocket blasting off. Marina was far from pleased by this, however, as the destroyed sub remains were now burning. With the net still attached, putting her Tentacruel and Psyduck in danger. She called out for them, but there was no answer. Thankfully, though, Golduck had went into the flames and managed to retrieve the net and walked out in a super badass manner, using Barrier to protect itself from the flames. When it got out from the flames, it immediately helped free Tentacruel and Psyduck from the net and return them to Marina, much to her delight, and Misty's, who went up to hug it, now liking Golduck even more than she did before, even though she thought that was impossible. Anyways, with Team Rocket dealt with, it was now time to resume the battle between Misty and Marina. And Misty sent out her Golduck, with Marina sending out her Starmie. Starmie proceeded to use a tackle, which hit the Golduck with a lot of force, and then it followed up with a bubble, which hit the Golduck with even more force. Golduck retaliates with a Hyper Beam, although Starmie manages to put up a light screen in order to block it, but the Hyper Beam is too powerful and shatters the light screen before shattering the Starmie as well, giving Misty the win. Misty is very pleased with this, and gives the Golduck a whole bunch of praise before telling it to take a rest in its Pokeball. However, when she tries to recall the Golduck into Psyduck's Pokeball, it fails. And that's because it was still Psyduck's Pokeball, as her Psyduck popped out. Misty tried her best to grasp the situation, but she just couldn't. But I can tell you I could. This meant that this Golduck wasn't actually her Psyduck evolved. It was a random-ass Golduck. And her Psyduck was still a Psyduck. The Golduck then notices 3 beautiful women walking by on the beach, and immediately leaves to go prove itself to them by flexing its muscles. This leads Marina to come to the correct conclusion that not only was this Golduck not Misty's, it was simply just a wild Golduck that liked to impress girls, and that's why it decided to obey Misty in the first place, as it wanted to impress her. So basically, this thing was just fucking Brock as a Pokemon. Which is exactly what Misty states when she realizes what Marina said was true, and fucking almost turns to stone in despair. Ash and Misty then both proceed to question the Psyduck, with Ash asking it where the fuck it even was all this time, as it simply points to its Pokeball, implying that it was in fact just in its Pokeball the whole time, and Misty had in fact grabbed the wrong empty Pokeball after all. Misty questions if Psyduck can evolve into Golduck, practically begging it to, but then Marina points out how Psyduck's tail was no longer pink, so why the fuck was it pink in the first place then? Anyways, Misty is obviously disappointed at being stuck with Psyduck, but Marina cheers her up by stating that she had at least proved that she was a good trainer, since she was able to command a wild Golduck. Ash counters, though, that since she had never officially caught Golduck, the battle that it had with it didn't count, and this just pisses off Misty even more. The episode then ends with Ash and the gang leaving for the next island as they say goodbye to Marina, with Marina stating how she wanted to have a rematch against Misty if Psyduck actually did evolve into Golduck. But let's be real, that probably won't happen, since Psyduck is too much of a comic relief character.